So this should be a fun cemetery visit. Hi, welcome to another episode of History Hunters. I'm here in Hayward, California to give you a special treat. I don't think anybody on YouTube has done this or visited this grave. Wizard of Oz, 1939 classic. I don't think there's anybody in my audience who probably hasn't seen it. It's a classic. I know when I was a kid growing up in the Bay Area here, I would watch it. I was just scared to death. Those flying monkeys just terrified me. Scared the crap out of me. I don't know if anything in that film struck you as scary. You probably were a kid when you first saw it. Of course, it came out in 1939. The film made Judy Garland a star, made Ray Bolger a star, Jack Haley. It was supposed to be a cloudy day here, but it's a very sunny day here in Hayward. And I'm glad. It's a beautiful day. I'm here because I want to visit the grave and pay my respects to Charlie Beck, who was the mayor of Munchkin City, and his wife. Now, he was only 3'9", but he was a giant in the entertainment industry. I'll tell you all about his career, and we'll go visit his grave on this episode of History Hunters. So the veterans section is right here. It's not very far from the entrance of the cemetery. And all you need to do to find Charlie's grave is look for this amphitheater right here on the hilltop. And there's this intersection here of Lone Tree Drive and Lone Tree Circle. And right here next to this water spigot, you go 3 grades in. And today somebody has got some flowers on the Becker's grave. And there they are, Mr. Becker and his wife, Charlie Becker, born November 24th, 1887. He died December 28th, 1968. I understand that he died in Elk Grove, and he had a sausage company. And his wife there, Jessie, who was also a midget, she was an entertainer as well. She lived from 1907 to 1968. So she died a little bit before Charlie did. Charlie was actually born as Carl Becker in Germany in 1887. He became known as Charlie Becker, probably best known for appearing as the Munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. Now, what probably a lot of you don't know is that because Carl, or Charlie here, had a German accent, they didn't want to use his voice for the Munchkin mayor's voice, so they dubbed in Billy Bletcher's voice for vocals. And I don't know, they must have sped it up or did something screwy with it because it sounds really sped up or something.
As mayor of the Munchkin City, in the county of the land of Oz.
I think all the voices of the dwarfs in that film were kind of sped up. But as a teenager, he worked as a butcher, and he was ridiculed by his fellow workers, obviously, because of his height. He was only 3'9". So when he was 19, he began performing in traveling midget shows and eventually joined the Singer Midgets, a famous troupe led by Leo Singer of Austria. The Singer Midgets moved to the United States during World War I, and they became popular on the vaudeville circuit. Becker became friends with George Burns, Will Rogers, and other stars of the day. Now, I find it interesting the fact that Jessie Kelly was an actress. She also was a midget. She played in the film, and they met on the set of Wizard of Oz. They fell in love together. By the way, there's a funny story. The collection of midgets was something they weren't used to. So when they all got together, I understand there was a lot of making out behind the sets because they had never had an opportunity to meet people their own size. It was difficult corralling them. So maybe Charlie and his wife here were part of that. She was from all places from Kansas. Of course, the film takes place in Kansas. So they got married in 1940. They lived in Kansas for a while. And they moved to California, where they found work as stand-in for child actors in Hollywood. So in 1984, there was a little bit of a controversy about Charlie Becker playing the mayor of Munchkin City. One of the other small people who was in The Wizard of Oz was an actor by the name of Prince Dennis. He passed away in 1984, and his obituary stated that he was the mayor of Munchkin City. However, that wasn't the case, so there was a lot of controversy about whether or not Charlie Becker was the mayor of Munchkin City, but he was. Dennis was actually a sergeant of arms, so that put that one to rest. The burial locations of the cast of Wizard of Oz are scattered throughout the country, but a number of them are in New York. Judy Garland, who played Dorothy, had been buried in a crypt in New York's Ferncliff Cemetery until she was moved in 2017 to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. The final resting place of Ray Bolger, who played the Scarecrow, is at the Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. Bolger died in 1987. The same cemetery is where you can find the grave of Jack Haley, who played the Tin Man. Haley died in 1979. To visit the grave of Bert Lahr, who played the Cowardly Lion and died in 1967, you must go to the Union Field Cemetery in Ridgewood, New York. He is buried with the Lahrheim family. He was actually born as Irving Lahrheim in 1895, but later changed his name to suit Hollywood film producers. Margaret Hamilton, who played the witch and schoolteacher Elmira Gulch, died in 1985. Her ashes were scattered over her property in Amina, New York. Frank Morgan, who played the great and powerful Oz and Professor Marvel, is buried in the Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York. He was born as Frank Wupperman in 1890 and died in 1949 at the age of 59. The Great Mausoleum in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale contains the remains of Charlie Grapewin, who played Uncle Henry. He passed away in 1956 at the age of 86. The same mausoleum is where the ashes of the beloved Auntie M, Clara Blandick, are located. She died in 1962. I have a couple of other graves I want to show you that are very interesting people. I'm really impressed with how gorgeous this place is. You know, a lot of people try to avoid cemeteries, but this is a beautiful location, very serene in a very hectic Bay Area. I think off at the distance I can see San Francisco, maybe some of the Oakland buildings. But in the 60s and 70s, I used to come to Hayward with my parents to visit one of my great uncles who lived here. His name was Columbus Cranford, and he served in World War II. Saw some pretty atrocious things, pretty horrible things in the war. And he passed away in, I think, 1993. I did confirm that he's buried in the cemetery down the hill. This plaque tells of a tale which I don't know if it's true or just folklore. Two young lovers who were eloping visited the hacienda of Don Guillermo Castro, the namesake for nearby Castro Valley. The two were apparently running away from her father, who didn't want them together. Castro gave them a horse and sent them on their way, and they rode off in the direction of this hill, where there was one lone tree at the time. Legend has it that later their bodies were found here, shot to death by her vengeful father. They were supposedly buried here, and thus this spot became a cemetery. Sometimes you just never know what you're going to find in these cemeteries. And I just stumbled upon this one, William Hayward, founder of Hayward, California. It says the bust of William D. Hayward, 1814 to 1891, is on loan to the Hayward Area Historical Society and may be seen at their museum. Look at this elaborate tile. And of course, he had to have this commanding view of the Bay Area. Very cool. Looks like in 1991, the city of Hayward dedicated the grave of William D. Hayward as a historic site. And here it is. I'd say that thing was about 8 feet tall. William Hayward died July 10th, 1891. He was 76 years old. An honest man is the noblest work of God. His wife, Rachel, mother of Hayward. Just who was William Dutton Hayward, and why was a city named after him? At the onset of the gold rush, Mr. Hayward sailed to San Francisco from his native Massachusetts in 1849. After trying without luck to find any gold in the Sierras, he returned to the Bay Area and became a squatter on land owned by Guillermo Castro. The Mexican government had granted Castro 28,000 acres in 1840, and squatters were a problem. Castro tried to evict Hayward, but William was tenacious and offered a small bribe by making Castro a pair of boots. Castro was impressed with the handiwork and hired Hayward, who eventually set up a small store. He saved up enough money to buy 40 acres of Castro's land, including what is now downtown Hayward along Mission Boulevard. When Castro lost his land due to gambling debts, the ranch was split up and sold to various locals, Hayward being one of them. He constructed a resort hotel at Main and A Streets, which eventually grew to 100 rooms. The surrounding area came to be called Hayward's after the hotel, which bore the name of Hayward's Hotel. William later became the road commissioner for Alameda County and used his authority to influence construction of roads in his own favor. In 1876, the town was chartered under the name of Hayward's. However, since it wasn't legal to name a post office after a living person, the official adopted name was Haywood. In 1876, Hayward was incorporated as the town of Haywards with a population of 1,100. In 1894, the S was dropped, and on September 18, 1928, the city's name was changed to the City of Hayward. Hayward's Hotel became a destination for travelers and tourists. It grew to be 4 stories high. The hotel also served as the post office, but the main force behind the success of Hayward's Hotel wasn't William Hayward, but wife Rachel, who arranged and managed parties, receptions, picnics, rides, and entertainment for guests. The hotel was destroyed by fire in 1923. There's the son, William Martin Hayward. Their only son. He died November 20th, 1893. He was only 26. This is very interesting. Look at this for the foot marker. Hayward Rebecca Lodge posted this. So Rachel's buried right here, and William is buried right here. Interesting. So I promised you another grave, and this is a doozy of one. Robert McDonald, who was actually on the same battlefield at Wolf Mountain, Montana, with the legendary Crazy Horse. Big slab here for Robert McDonald, May 12th, 1882, and May 20th, 1901. So let me tell you a little bit about Robert McDonald. He was an Indian Campaign's Medal of Honor recipient, served in the Army during the wars with the Plains Indians as a first lieutenant in the 5th U.S. Infantry. He was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for bravery at Wolf Mountain, Montana. It was a battle that took place on January 8th, 1877. His citation that was issued in 1894 read that he led his command in a successful charge against superior numbers of hostile Indians that were strongly posted. They struggled in taking the hills because of the deep snow, but they secured 7 of the hills that were occupied by Sioux and Cheyenne. They withdrew as the weather conditions deteriorated, leaving the field with a tactical draw. Even though it was considered a draw, the battle was a strategic victory for the Army because it demonstrated that both the Sioux and the Cheyenne were not safe from them, even during the winter and the harsh conditions up there. Many individuals began slipping away and returning to their reservations. And by May, Crazy Horse had led his surviving band into Camp Robinson to surrender. And as you know, Crazy Horse was murdered trying to escape, or so the story is. There were probably bloodthirsty Army people who just wanted to kill him. Robert McDonald has a commanding view here of the Bay Area. It's just a beautiful view if you can get past the electric lines over there. Boy, it just doesn't take very long for people who are famous to be forgotten about. Just a couple of generations or two have passed and nobody knows who you are. It's kind of sobering. I'm just noticing this veterans section full of graves from veterans of all wars. A lot of them look like Civil War graves. Some newer graves, World War II graves, Spanish-American War graves. And here's a war cannon here at the flagpole. This is kind of an interesting one. Francis Boatman accompanied the 114th Regiment Indiana Volunteers, died in 1913. Looks like a lot of these veterans passed away right around the turn of the century or a little bit before, like Mr. Everett here of Company B of the 49th New York Infantry. So I do want to thank you so much for watching this episode of History Hunters. At the time that I'm recording this, I am approaching 100,000 subscribers. We started about 6 years ago. It's been a long haul, and I appreciate those of you who have been with us from the beginning, and of course those who regularly comment. That always helps promote our channel to others. That's our goal, to keep spreading the interest in our channel. So if you could do a couple of things for us, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, also the notification bell, hit the like button, and if you could, leave us a comment. I'm very curious if you were like me as a kid, panicking when you had to watch Wizard of Oz, especially the flying monkey scene. Terrified me. I still can't get that out of my head. But thank you so much.